All right. Hey, listeners, welcome. I miss you guys. It's been a whole week, right, since we had this talk, but I've been following your comments. Thank you so much for getting on Facebook and giving us those comments, giving us your questions, because that's what today's going to be all about, is you can ask me anything. I'll try to answer it as best as possible. Dawn's sitting right over here. Todd's right here. So if there's a question for Dawn and I'll make sure we get her answers, because sometimes her perspective's much different than mine. You guys, thank you for the reviews. Way to go. I'm so happy you liked the book. I knew you would. I had that sense, just your makeup, people that take action, people that join a group like this, people who hear those words the best and it hits them gutturally, primally, and causes them to take on their own life. I just really appreciate that. And so I posted something earlier today that I just saw, and it was a speech that Nick Saban, the head coach at Alabama, was giving. I don't know who he was giving it to, but it looked like he was in a gym, like a gymnasium. Maybe it was to some students. I don't know, but I just love that when these, he's probably the greatest coach in college football history. I just love when people who know how to win, people who know how to achieve things, think and say the same things that we are talking about. Like the exact words he said was, people who are mediocre hate high achievers, and high achievers hate mediocrity. And then I started thinking, I go, God, that's something that I would say. That's something how I see the world kind of like that. Like we're always in this battle between, the people who promote mediocrity, which I don't know who would promote that, but apparently a lot. And then those of us who trust our own primitive nature to be the best. And Nick Saban actually used the term high achiever, and then he used the term mediocre people. And I just think the mediocre mindset, the mediocre people, they don't know there's another way. That's my thought. I don't know that they can see what we see. So if we have a mediocre mindset today, we can see that there's another way to go, right? We can see we can be the best and we can attempt to achieve that, right? I just think that most people just get stuck right there, and they don't even realize that their life has standards, and it has really high standards. Most people, they just don't like standards, and so they don't have any standard at all. So their standard just automatically becomes mediocre. But people with very high standards, like we have to win this week, or we have to bring in this much money, or our marriage is going to be held to this kind of standard, or my performance today is going to be held to the standard of the greatest performers ever. We have very high standards. I just don't think the mediocre crowd, the ones that believe in mediocrity and being average, I just don't think they have any standards. I don't believe they like standards, and they don't want to play that game. And I get it, on somewhere in my body, I kind of get it. And then some days I don't get it at all. Like I just want to shake them and go, no, you have to have these really high standards for your kids and for your job and for your marriage and for the food that you eat and the books you read. Otherwise, you're just going to, just wallow in mediocrity. That's just how it is, So let's get started with the questions. I just love that video, and I wanted to pass it on to you. And it's so funny. I keep seeing people say this term, or people keep sending it to me. There's no plan B. I didn't have a plan B. Oh, I didn't have a plan B. And it's usually from people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Eddie Murphy. Who else said it, Don? I just heard somebody else say it the other day. Nick Saban was basically saying it. And As soon as you have a plan B, you don't have a plan A. And the greats somehow, before the world said they were great, somehow they knew that. Somehow they knew they didn't have a choice or an option. And then one more thing, and then we'll get to your questions. Being that today is 9/11, that was 18 years ago. Dawn and I were in New York when that happened. In fact, we were at Ground Zero, a day later, standing in that rubble, right? We were there the day the president came, and, no one could get in there, but we were there. And it was really something to see. It's like you couldn't even believe your eyes what you were seeing. It looked like a movie set, like a disaster movie set. It didn't look real. Anyway, I was thinking of all the firefighters that lost their lives, and the first responders that lost their lives that weren't in that building before it fell, right? They weren't in the building. They were in their firehouses. They were wherever they were. And I'm always moved by that all of us civilians are running out of there because the building is on fire and the building is going to come down. So we're running out of there. And what is that mindset that has someone run in there? While you and I are leaving, they are going in. That is the best representation of no plan B. They didn't have the option of not going in. They went in because that's what they're trained to do. Let me repeat that. I want you to equate this to what you're going through right now. They're playing their A game. They're trained to be the best in the world at what they do. So when a building is burning and people are in danger, the training says we run in. No plan B, no options, no thinking, no wondering, no voting on whether you have courage or bravery or whether you don't. No thinking, no distractions. Not thinking about sharing this with others. They had one option, and the option is to save lives. And so the training of being the best tells you to run in. You follow your training. You don't follow options. And your life's going to be like that too. Now, it may not be as life and death as that, but it might be. And for a lot of the people in the A-listers group, that is, it is life and death. I always thought of professional athletics. For me, I always thought that was life and death. I thought, I could die out there. And so I played with a certain urgency where I didn't have any options, where I played full out just to keep myself alive, just to keep myself surviving to the next week. And the military people we have in this group and the former military that we have in this group transitioning, you know what I'm talking about. That transition is just as life and death as you actually being, out there fighting. So with that's sober opening, because that's really what being the best is. It's like being sober. We're not self-medicated. We're not distracted. We're very sober. We handle things as they are, right? So let's get to your questions. Todd, what's our first question?
It's from Alan.
Alan,
and he says, as you know, on the hunt to being the best, there are copious acts that require focus to bring greatness into reality. Commitment being the high on the list. What is your one daily act without fail?
Yeah, great question, Alan. The one thing I do every day, and it usually starts every day, but because it starts every day, it goes all through the day. Because a good beginning ends to a good ending. You play a good first quarter, guess what? You're going to finish the fourth quarter really strong. I wake my kids up, right? So my dad woke me up, which is how this book came to being in the first place. I wake my kids up by telling them they're the best. But before I tell them they're the best, before I rub their back and wake them up, I'm actually seeing them, you know, in their little slumber as the best. I'm seeing them for who they actually are. I think in our world today, our media, our world, our education system, our culture as a whole, pretty much sees and speaks to what we are not. They speak to us as if we're mediocre. They speak to us as if we're average, and we're not. I speak and I see people as if they are the best because that's what Mother Nature tells me they are. So I see the world accurately. First thing, I take a pulse of the culture. I can feel it, and you can feel it right now if you pay attention and you're present enough. And I feel the culture wanting to go in a certain direction, and I go in the opposite direction, which is to see greatness in people and then speak it. Say it. Acknowledge their greatness. Wake them up. First thing they hear is they are the best. And sometimes some cuss words are mixed in there, right? That's how I start every day. So every day, that's what I see. Now, when I see greatness, right? So I start to see greatness, I start to speak greatness, and people start being great around me. And then once in a blue moon, I'll run into somebody who's trying to prove to me that they're not great, that they're actually average, or they were actually put on this earth to be mediocre. And then I try to prove it to them. I have them take up their issue with Mother Nature because she's undefeated, and I can't argue with you anymore about your own greatness because you're just out to prove me wrong, right? That's how I start every day. It is a great way to start every day because you're seeing the world in a certain way. You're actually speaking people into existence because you speak to people in a certain way and they rise or fall based on the level that you're speaking to them in. If you talk to them like they're stupid, guess what they become? Stupid. If you talk to them like they're the best, guess what they become? The best. That's how I start every day. That's how I end every day. And at this point in my life, I've done it so many years that it's become like kind of seamless in my body. You know, it just happens all day, every day. So I'm not thinking about it very much. It's just kind of happening. Okay. I hope that answers your question. What else do we have, Todd?
So Joseph's an actor and a magician. And he's saying, how does your process work in a world where the best is not always getting the part?
Yeah.
Where you have a jury who has to evaluate an act or an audition. Yeah.
So Joseph is an actor, a performer, and a magician. Yeah. So apparently for auditions, right? So I was an actor too, so I know you have to be chosen for those auditions, right? The best isn't about being chosen. So let's change that mindset, right? For you, and what I used to do was wait, and Dawn did this too. We waited to be chosen by the producers or the director or who's ever the judge, who's ever in that role of chooser. Me and Dawn didn't like that. I didn't like them choosing my own fate. So we took our lives into our own hands and chose ourselves and wrote our own play that I get to say the words I wrote, and I own the whole play. I own the property, which then gets bought and gets, sold. But I own it. I own the rights, right? So it's my own vision. So they used to choose Tom Cruise over me, and they used to choose Brad Pitt over me, and they used to choose Leonardo DiCaprio over me every week. They did, right? And probably rightly so. But as soon as I chose myself, wrote my own play, those very guys that they used to choose over me were now in my audience choosing me. You understand? Joseph, I want you to get on your own side. You're not waiting for the judge and jury to decide whether you're a good magician or a good actor. You claim you stake your claim. You put on your own show. You invite them to come to your show. I want you to take your life into your own hands instead of waiting to be chosen. This goes for all of you. This goes for all of you. Now, some of you, when I got drafted in the NFL, some of you might be saying, well, Bo, they chose you. The Houston Oilers chose you in the draft. That's true. But I chose myself at 9. They chose me at 21. I chose myself at 9. You understand? I trained. I ran the miles. I chose myself for all those years. And the Houston Oilers were just in position that I was their right choice. Like, that guy's proved it. That guy can play. That guy can run. Let's take him. So it was me choosing me. Now the Oilers got to choose me many years later, right? But it was me choosing me. All of you, choose yourself. Get on your own side. Most of us are on the opposite side of us being the best. And I want everyone right now, I love your questions. And I just love this A-listers team. I really love it. It's made me better at what I do. But I want you all to think about the questions that you're asking. And before you ask them, always ask yourself, am I asking this question to get out of being the best? Always ask that question of yourself before you ask questions. Always ask, am I trying to get out of some hard work? Am I trying to make Bo prove me wrong about me being average? Try not to ask questions that are like that, right? Try to ask questions that are life fulfilling. Because if you keep asking questions like, Bo, I just don't believe it. I wasn't born in a family with good genes. You're actually just asking to get out of a bunch of hard work. That's what I believe where the questions come from. So always kind of discern where your questions are coming from. If it's self-fulfilling and going to make you the best, I say, go ahead and ask it. If you're having some trouble and you're struggling, I love that too. Ask that. All right, Todd, what's next?
All right, so this one's about Axel. It says, what if Axel wanted to change his declaration? How can he be so certain about his desire having a relatively short term of living experiences? By Paul.
Okay, Paul, thanks. Great question. Great question. I get asked this quite a bit, right? So Axel has this 20-year plan, right? He's following his being the best. He has his declaration. He's done all the work that you're doing right now, right? But he kind of started at 6, right? So because he needed to achieve what he wanted to do, he needed a lot of years. And so that's why he did that. So he may change his mind, right? Like, that's 100% possibility. You know how people are. But here's the beauty of what he's armed with. What Axel has that most kids just don't have. In fact, most adults don't have what he has, which is he has mastered himself. He has mastered the art of fulfilling on a dream. And that he knows what that means. He knows he loses some things. He loses birthday parties. He loses certain foods. He loses certain freedoms, certain times. A lot of options, since we're speaking of options always in here, go away for a guy like Axel. The less options he has, the better chance he has to fulfill. So if he does change his declaration, he will be armed with mastery of himself. He will be armed with what it takes to be the best. Now, he's a great dancer, right? And he takes dance class, and he was in the dance show. And Dawn and I was like, God, he's an amazing dancer. He could totally switch over to that and probably go all the way in dance, the equivalent of the Super Bowl in dance, right? But I think he's going to first do the athletic thing, and then he may go to dance or some other kind of performance, because he will know what it takes to be the best at a thing. And then the second go round won't take as long. If you choose the wrong declaration, guess what it'll do? It will show you, it will reveal to you the right declaration. So quit being so afraid to pick the wrong declaration. Just pick one because it will reveal the right one. Trust me, it will. And what was the other part of that question? Todd, at the end, he said something else about Axel. What was it? I don't think I answered that part. What if he changes? Oh, his life perspective. You said he had a short life
experiences.
Since his life is short, he's only 12, his experiences, right? He doesn't have a lot of life experiences. That is true. But I don't think these declarations and our dreams come from our life experience. I think they come from a higher place. I just do. I think they come because they wouldn't hit you so hard at such a young age if it had to do with life experience. It has to do with some lightning bolt coming down, some dream, some whisper in your ear that you had once that said, I want to be this, or I want to try that. I want to climb Mount Everest. I want to be the fastest 80-year-old marathoner in the world. Whatever it is, I think those things are come to us. And if you stay still, quiet and quiet enough, long enough, that declaration will whisper itself in your ears. Okay? Okay, Todd.
So Brian asked you, what if you wanted to be the best life coach ever, what sort of practice would you do every day that would entirely depend on you and not necessarily involve coaching another person? I'm just thinking involving other people in my practice times may limit how much I practice. Guess this means I coach to an empty chair, right?
Brian, that's good. That's funny. So Brian wants to be the best life coach, right? So, and then he's asking practice, right? Like mechanically practice. How do I do that? Do I practice on people? Do I practice to an empty chair? No empty chair rehearsals. Here's what you got to do. If you're this is the number one thing you got to do if you want to be the best coach. You have to know thyself. Right? Who said that? I don't know if Aristotle said, somebody very smart way back in the day said that. Know thyself. If you're going to be a great coach, and it doesn't matter if you're a life coach or a story coach or a football coach or a parenting coach, it doesn't matter what the principle is. You have to understand yourself. You do. You have to be ultra present enough to see your client or whoever you're coaching, your player. You have to see them clearly. Most coaches, bad coaches, I would say, are not present enough with their coachee, with their player. They're present with themselves, right? Like they're going, wow, I got to come up with a really great tip. I got to come up with a really great coaching sentence right here to help my people. And all they could think about is them. They are not present with the person who needs the coaching. You stay present with the player. You see what the player needs and you speak that into existence. And you attack everything, the identity of that player, you attack and you chip away at what they're not. So the identity is a fake thing. It's a fake story, right? It's made up. You have to attack that. People go, well, Bo, I'm just lazy. I have to attack that belief and destroy it for them, right? But I got to be present enough to see it. That's why the great coaches, they're not with themselves. They're not over here. You got to understand who you are. You have to resolve all the attention that you want as a coach. That's over. You're not getting attention for being a coach. You're just, the more successful the person you're talking to, that's where you get your satisfaction, right? So you got to resolve a lot of issues. If you need attention, you got to resolve that. If you need credit, you need to resolve that. You're not here for credit. You're here for greatness. And when you care about somebody's dreams and their greatness and you fight for it, you become a very valuable coach. So get your attention off of you and put it out here on your subjects. So you got to resolve a lot of things. That's why I say know thyself over here. And then just look at the world. Watch the world and start to, you can just coach them just by being present. You can see somebody on the news. You can see somebody walking into Starbucks. And I all the time, I go, oh, they don't trust themselves. Oh, she's apologizing for her femininity. Oh, he doesn't trust his own sexuality. Whatever it is, I see it and I name it to myself. They're not paying me, so they're not getting the coaching, right? You only coach people who are paying, right? That because they're the ones paying for the truth. If a friend comes to me and goes, Bo, give me some free advice. What should I do? Typically, I don't do that, right? Because when people pay you for the advice and the coaching, then you can be truthful with them. Like, look, knock this shit off and stop this, do this. And you got to be tough with them sometimes, right? You got to attack their identity. Sometimes that's tough for people to take on, but when they're paying for it, they take it on, right? But when it's free advice, they go, oh, my friend's not very nice. Bo's not very nice to me. I don't coach those people, right? So do that, and over time, if you get present enough and you can name people's identities, like just by looking at them, and you start to see the culture in a certain way, then you get to be the most valuable person on the planet, which is somebody who can help other people with their dreams. Okay? Cool, Brian. Good question, man. Hope that helps.
So Nia's been reading your book, and she's getting a little squirmy, she says.
Is it
to make a commitment.
Nia, you're getting squirmy about the commitment? I understand. I love, just so you know, Nia, and everybody, I love squirmy. I do. It's a great word. It's a great description of how it feels to make a lifelong sacred promise to yourself.
So her question is, how specific do we need to be with our declaration to be the best?
Very specific with the declaration. The simpler, the better. Think of the examples. I want to be the best safety. That's if I'm not the best safety, guess what? I know it. I didn't say I wanted to be one of the best safeties. I said I wanted to be the best. So I know if I'm in second place, right? It's very specific. Your brain works very specifically. If you say, I want to win an Olympic medal, you probably will, but it may not be a gold. But if you say, I want to win a gold medal, that's how your brain is going to line you up for the next 18 years. So be very specific about being the best at what you want to be the best at. So specific, a clear and concise declaration, not a paragraph of, here's examples I get. I have envisioned world peace, and I'm going to walk the earth until I die, spreading daisies across the sand. I'm like, no, that's not, that can't be measured. That's not what we do here. We are declaring what we're going to be the best at. So keep it simple, keep it concise. And I don't care if you squirm. You can squirm for the next 20 years. I love it. I don't care. Here, remember this, you guys. On your way to being the best, I don't really care that much about how you feel, because you're going to feel great. You're going to feel shitty. You're going to feel helpless. You're going to feel rich. You're going to feel impactful. And then you're going to feel useless. All of those feelings are on the path to being the best. I don't care about feelings. I care about your commitment. I care about your declaration. That's what I'm going to fight for. Okay? That's all you should be fighting for. Okay, cool.
So Rich is saying, striving for the best is reasonable enough, but can two people be the best at the same thing? Asking not to be argumentative, but to hear how you address the question for someone who might be focused on the zero-sum game aspect of it all.
Yeah, I don't play that zero-sum game. Yeah, two people can be the best. Two people can be the best. It's just how it is. You're going to argue back and forth. Who's to really say? It's you that's making these decisions. So if there is somebody who's competing, who says they're the best, or you look over there and you go, shit, they are the best. I want to be better than them. So I'm going to go deeper than them. I'm going to go further than them. I'm going to outwork them. I'm going to outsmart them. Whatever it is, that other best is giving you some healthy, competitive competition, which is what the best always need. You can never be the best if you're not a competitor. You just can't. And some people go, well, Bo, I'm not competitive. I didn't come from a competitive nature. And I'm like, that is a lie, for one, because you would not be alive right here on this earth today if you didn't come from competitive stock, meaning your ancestors had to compete for food, for mates, for shelter, for you to be here. So you're made of that stock. So I know you're competitive. You know how to compete. So yeah, answer the question simply. There can be two. There can be three. In fact, you might take them with you. And once you make the declaration of being the best, what I have found, every time I do it, a group comes with me. And they're at the top too. And then some of the closest people around you are now up there with you. There could not be any better thing than that, right? Okay, hope that answers the question. What else, Todd?
So Dave was first drawn to you via public speaking channels. What are the best tips for having presence on camera and in front of a live audience?
The best tip for having presence on camera and presence on stage live is you have to surrender to one thing. And this might upset a few people. So I don't want you being upset. We're trying to be the best. So the coach, when you're trying to be the best, sometimes has to say something that might not be necessarily politically correct, because the politically correct crowd are not interested in being the best. They're more interested in slowing down the best, if you notice. So you have to surrender to the fact. If you want people to never take their eyes off of you, and this is the one promise I make in my personal story power, my event. If you want people to never look away from you, then you have to surrender to the fact that you are a predator. And I know that word is controversial to be saying this day and age when we assign a great moniker like predator to the worst of our society, people like Harvey Weinstein and these goofballs. When we start assigning a great moniker like predator to them, I don't agree with that. A predator is a lion, a tiger, a cheetah, a great white shark, a falcon, and us, human beings. We are predators, and we are the most dangerous predators. We're also the most noble. We're also the most trustworthy. We are predators. When you start to surrender to the fact that you are an animal, and you are a dangerous, dangerous animal, the smartest animal on the planet. When you start to stop apologizing for that, people will not be able to look away from you. And if you want to go further on that, you know, Jean-Louis Rodrigue, my movement coach, the guy who spent his whole life studying predators, taught me how to move, taught me how to have presence. I would go to my event, Personal Story Power. I would go to that. We do it twice a year. I would go to that. It's 3 days, and we're going to turn you into the predator that you already are. Okay? Yeah. And it's a blast. So I would do that. What else, Todd? Oh, Dawn just yelled at me. It's sold out. Our next event is in May. Our next
November, and May's open.
Our next event is November. It's sold out. The next one is May after that. Right? And we do those in La Jolla. We're doing it in La Jolla, right, babe? La Jolla near San Diego. You know what else, you guys, I was just thinking about because of that question and the questions so far, and I'll answer maybe one or two more, right, Todd? So hang in there, you guys. This stuff's important. You know, there's a chapter, there's a heading in the book that talks about get a dawn, right? And I look over to my wife all the time. We have this partnership where we build things together, right? And that is one of the most critical steps that you must take to be the best is get a dawn. Now, your dawn might be a man. The gender doesn't matter, right? Nothing matters except this person has to have the ability to be unreasonable and fight for your dreams and fight for their own dreams. So you all know people like this. They may have other occupations. Here's what I want you to do. I think this is a good action step for us. I want you to get them this book. this book that you're reading and you're being impacted by, I want you to get that person this book. And I want you to sign something in there and give that to them and to ask them to read it. And as soon as they hit the last page, to call you and let's meet for coffee. I want to talk to you about something. That is a great step to being the best, because if I don't have Dawn in my life, you guys, I'm not here, right? I don't know where I am, right? Maybe someplace illegal, maybe hurting myself or other people. I don't know, right? But I do know where I'm going to be when I've got a Dawn. So you've got to have that person. Think hard in your circle of influence. They may have a job already. They may be married to somebody else. It's got nothing to do with marriage. And you get them the book. You tell them you want them to read this book now. And then you say at the end, call me when you're done. And then you sit down with them and you tell them you want them to start playing with you. That's a cool call to action. That's a cool way to live your life. Even if they can't, even if they're not up for that fight, I want you to think of the next person and the next person until you find it. And then you fight for these dreams together and you start to build things together. No different than you would build a house together or a family together. But now we're talking about a dream that you're going to build together. That's what I want you to do. Find that person. Okay, Todd, what else we got? One more?
Okay.
One more question, guys.
So
Thanks for hanging in there.
Natalia asks, how do you inspire others to strive for being the best? How can we lead our teams into the best mindset?
Natalia, is it, Todd?
Yeah.
Natalia, great question, right? So Natalia has a team, Todd? Does that sound like she has a team?
Wants to know how do you lead them into the best mindset?
You have a team already. I would use the book. This is what I would do. This is what I did do. This is how I built the team. And my team, they fight. And they come from all socioeconomic backgrounds, all different religions, all different creeds and colors and genders. Doesn't matter. You're looking for the heart. I built my team based on this document. Based on I want to be the best at this. So that's the same thing. The Dawn is, you get a Dawn is, is going to end up being the leader of your team. So the rest of the team's going to have to fall in line too. They're going to have to go from this same manuscript called There's No Plan B for your A game. They're going to have to understand, Natalia, that mindset. It's more than a mindset, though. It's the way of seeing the world. It's more not in your mind. It's more in your eyes. Think of it in your eyes, what you're seeing. I see my kids every morning. They're asleep. They look like little angels, and I see greatness, and I wake them up with that. Your team, you see greatness in them. You see greatness in yourself. You know you can fulfill on this thing because no one's not fulfilled on this thing of being the best. No one has not fulfilled on it that declared it. I haven't heard of one that didn't fulfill on their declaration. I haven't heard of one. So this is a guarantee if you give yourself long enough timelines and you build the right team. So I would be giving that book out and saying, let's get together. Let's get on the same page, which is this document that you have in front of you, this No Plan B. Because if you have somebody that's got a plan B on your team, guess what's happening to your team? Plan B. Plan B is going to happen. One person can knock the whole thing off over here to plan B. But they have to know that Natalia and her team don't have any options. We don't have any fallback plans. We're going to the top. And if you're not interested in that conversation, team member, then we would be better off separate. Just like if you look at that video I just sent this morning of Nick Saban, he said, all I'm trying to do with my team is get the right guys on the bus and get the wrong guys off the bus. All he's trying to do is get the right guys on the bus and the wrong guys off the bus. That's why the dude wins so many national championships. He doesn't have any plan B. All the guys that had plan B are now off the bus. You got me, Natalia? Your dreams are too important. I will fight for them to the day you die. But will you fight for them? Will you let an amateur on your team? Will you let somebody on your team that doesn't believe in plan A? That doesn't follow suit with plan A? If you're going to do that, then shame on you. And I know you're not, Natalia. I'm just using you as an example. You can't apologize for you having this desire to be the best, because way back 58 years ago for me, I don't know how long ago it was for you, on the day of your conception, you were unreasonable. You were determined. You were competitive. You're still that same little dude or that same little gal. That same little sperm is you. You're the one who won the race. You're the one that fertilized the egg. I would use this book that you have, No Plan B, to not only get your dawn. I'm not just talking about one person. Start with one person. But if you have a team in place already, I would make that. I would be required reading, required do the action steps, required. That's how I built my team. And that's how I'd build yours too. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful for everybody. Continue in the comment section on Facebook. Continue to share. Continue your feedback. I love it. I love this group. I've never been connected quite to a group like this online before. But you guys have really made it great for me. And I hope it's great for you too. I know if you follow the steps of this book, I know where you're going to end up. You're going to end up at the top. It is predictable, as all my roommates I've ever had. They ended up at the top because it is predictable if you follow the principles that are in this book. No plan B. All right. Thank you, guys. And we'll see you next week.